It's June 2022 at the time of filming, and if you're watching this, it means I'm already dead. I'm kidding, but I've always wanted to make an episode like that, like for my family or something. I've left my inheritance locked in a chest somewhere in the LA River. Maybe it's the La Brea tar pits. Either way, if you think you're worthy of my inheritance, I've left a series of clues. The first one being behind a toilet.
Wow, what a dick.
Station on Rosemead Boulevard. Just remember that although I'm gone, I am deeply disappointed in each and every one of you. Alright, that bit went on a bit too long. But anyway, as of June 2022, we are at about 8.3% inflation. Consumer price index for food is up 9.4%. Average cost of gas in the US is $4.25 a gallon, although where I live in LA, it's like well above $8. But easily the most shocking metric that we're seeing right now is Rolex prices absolutely tanking. And for those of you who want sources of what I'm looking at, here's some stuff on the US inflation rate, here's some stuff on the gas prices, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter really, like people have a billion things that they're going to want to argue about and they're going to make it political, but bottom line, things are getting really expensive and inflation is really, really high. Bada bing, bada boom. But I'll leave links to the articles that I'm reading in the description below for each and every one of you to take a look at. But why are we talking about all of this? Well, as I mentioned a second ago, Rolex prices going down. For the first time ever? Is Rolex not holding the crown anymore? Is Rolex not the super duper powerhouse that we thought they were? Is Rolex not a good investment after all? You know, maybe Rolex can be the first Swiss watchmaker to develop a watch, removing the power reserve indicator and then making a recession indicator on the dial. That was come on, that was funny. That was funny.
Please clap.
So jokes aside, should we be getting rid of our Rolexes? Should we just be dumping them? Should we just cut our losses? And are these investments not what we thought they were? Well, first off, I want to say I've never advocated for investing in wristwatches because I think it makes the fun of the hobby a bit too serious, and I think people underestimate how much money they have to put in order to get any long-term gain. We're talking about, investing in wristwatches. But okay, we're going to talk about all of this and more today. So please sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy. All right, it is 1:55 p.m. Let's get down to business. All right, so what got this whole buzz going? Because let's face it, everyone's talking about Rolex prices going down. There's memes about it. People are making videos about it. But what got this all started? Well, according to this Fratello Watches article, they pulled up a clip, or a picture, I should say, from the Watch Charts Instagram. All right, so I want to thank Watch Charts for all the images we're going to be using right now because they really concisely and clearly broke down pricing for all these various watches and reference numbers, and they don't just do Rolex. So I urge you guys, if you have an Instagram account, go follow Watch Charts, at Watch Charts. Tell them the Time Teller sent you. They're a really cool account, and I follow them myself. So this is the initial clip that got everyone freaking out, right? It shows the Rolex Submariner date 126610 LV, which is some people call it the new Kermit. Some people call it the Kermit with a C instead of a K for ceramic. Some people call it the Starbucks, I think. But either way, it's the new Submariner, black dial, green bezel. And we can see steady, then a very pronounced uptick in price. And then here's what's gotten people freaking out. This kind of leveling off, and then right here at the end, a very subtle dip, right? It's dipping. So we see here that this specific Rolex reference number has dipped about 10%. Now we should state it is still sitting well above 2 times the retail price. So it's not like you've lost money if you bought this at retail. However, we all know buying stainless steel Rolexes at retail is near impossible right now. It's for the last 5 years, it's been like near impossible. But it's not just this reference number. For instance, the Rolex Hulk, right? The almighty Hulk, the watch that like everyone wanted 2 years ago, it dropped about 5%. Not terrible, but still a dip. Two very sought after Rolex Daytona reference numbers, they dropped about 7%. And then here's a really interesting one. The two 42mm Explorer 2 reference numbers have dropped 5 to 9%, while my personal Explorer 2, the 40mm, which is the 16570 reference number, has jumped 5%. And that's incredible because I spent about $5,000, I think like 5,100 for mine back in 2018, and now they're going for about 10. So I made well above 5% on that. But yeah, it's interesting that the more modern 42mm Explorer 2s are dipping, but the 40mm ones going up. Something to think about. 40mm Oyster cases, that's the way to go. I've said that for years now. Now, speaking of gains, because this isn't all bad, when we look at other models like these various precious metal GMT Masters, they're up 38%. And then the steel GMT Masters are up as high as 46%. And then the ugly, colorful OPs that came out a couple years ago, they seem to have tremendous gains across the board. Although, it's interesting because I would never be caught dead wearing one. So why is this happening? Why are some coming down while others are going way up? Well, it's might not be what you think it is, okay? I think it's consumer interest and not consumer confidence, because oftentimes when we're like entering an like economic instability or a potential recession, I know that that's like a buzzword. People are like, oh God, what the fuck is going on? When you think of an economy entering a recession, consumer confidence in luxury goods would decrease. That's what you would think, right? People would be wanting to save their money and put it towards things that they actually need, not these frivolous luxury items. But according to finance experts online, luxury goods, despite the high price tag, are surprisingly resilient to recessions. For heritage brands with generations of experience and cachet, Rolex, a recession can actually lead to more consumers switching to it due to their tastes becoming more discerning. A large component of the price of luxury goods is the intangible promise of quality, prestige, and long-lasting value. Luxury watches, for example, are promoted as heirlooms to be passed down through generations, right? Like you never actually own a Patek, you just hold it for the next generation. Very cool. Another thing to consider is that China's consumer base is enormous when it comes to consumption of Swiss luxury goods. According to this article, as the Chinese earnings are increasing, their demand for luxury products is also increasing. In 2017, Swiss watch exports saw their strongest growth in more than 5 years. We can see in mainland China and Hong Kong a rise of 21.3%, and mainland China sales skyrocketing 44.3%. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. So this was an article from 2019, of course, due to the last 2 years and current events. China's, economic growth has slowed, but just because it slowed, it doesn't mean that they're not spending enormous amounts of money on luxury goods. We can see here this article from January 2022. China's consumers spent $73.6 billion on luxury goods at home last year, up 36% from 2020. So the Chinese consumer base still has money to spend, and they're spending it. Guys, back in 2017, more towards 2018 though, like at the beginning of my channel, one of the big questions was about this kind of difficulty in purchasing Rolexes. This was before it got really, really bad. It was bad though, so people were kind of tempered. They're like, hey, I feel like it's a bit difficult to find stainless steel Rolexes. Is this like a trend or is it just me? And nowadays, we're all like, yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to find these stainless steel Rolexes. Like, what else is new? But back then, there was just little murmurs in the watch, collecting community. And people would ask me, hey, time teller, what do you think is going on? And my answer back then, back in 2018, was like, yeah, China. China is buying a ton of wristwatches. All right, Patek, even Blancpain, or definitely Blancpain, but even Longa, excuse me, and Rolex. Huge interest in the Chinese market because they're spending money. So if it was happening back then, we can rest assured it's happening now. China's buying a ton of Rolex products, which means it's still difficult for us to find them here. So, okay, I know what you're thinking. But Rolexes are still kind of hard to find. China's buying a ton of Rolexes. Consumer confidence is still quite high. But how do we explain some of these Rolex reference numbers going way down? Well, I think it's consumer interest. Interests change. This is a personal opinion here, guys, so I'd love to hear you guys chime in the comment section, but I think the Submariner has been the top dog for a long while. The Daytona has been the top dog for a long while, and I think people who have them aren't interested in them maybe anymore. They're not interested in acquiring more of them, and they're kind of offloading them, and they're shifting their interest to these other more interesting GMT models with precious metals, even these stainless steel ones. And that's why we see these more colorful Oyster Perpetuals going up in price. We see these precious metal GMTs going up in price, and we see the stainless steel GMTs going up a ton. I don't fully understand why the two 42mm Explorer 2 reference numbers are going down, except for the fact that I think they're just not that great, right? 42mm Oyster cases wear much larger than you'd think, and I think people bought them, got their hands on them, and then realized that they're just not super wearable and they're not great compared to like 40mm Oyster cases. So that's my personal explanation. I don't know if I'm right, but we can distill it down to this, okay? China is still pretty much the largest consumer of Swiss watches. The consumer interest has shifted. Consumer confidence is still incredibly high. Vintage Rolex reference numbers are still skyrocketing. Like they're steadily going up in price. And despite economic instability, consumer confidence is kind of unchanged, I feel like. So are Rolex prices dropping? Yes. And no. So guys, I don't know if we actually got to the bottom of anything in this episode. I was just trying to give you some information and give you my take on everything, but let me know what you think. What prices have you seen changing? What's your explanation for what's going on? And again, I don't think anyone's right or wrong here. I think that we're all just trying to make sense of this crazy time we live in. So please leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. And there you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't already and consider joining the channel. Click that join button next to the subscribe button. And yeah, $4.99 a month gets you access to that members only Discord chat where we talk about a plethora of things that we can't talk about here on YouTube. So I would love to see you there. Thank you for supporting the channel. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember I didn't invent time. I just tell it.